Okay, I think we're good to go. Let's start. Hello everyone, I'm Shiva Agarwal, founder and CEO of Earth ID, a decentralized identity management platform. I'm leading Government Blockchain Association in Europe, and I'm also leading the Identity Management Working Group. I would like to welcome all of you to today's event on blockchain and cybersecurity, wherein we will discuss various aspects of cybersecurity and potential applications of blockchain technology. I know some of you might be disappointed as Gerard was supposed to host this panel, but as the saying goes, when life gives lemons, let's make a lemonade. Jokes apart, we have seen various cybersecurity incidents across the globe impacting billions of people, organizations, and even federal governments. There are various reasons for such incidents. Some of them are like outdated IT and security infrastructure, digitization of public services, but lack of focus on security, advancements in AI and Internet of Things, which increases the potential of devices going rogue, remote working environments due to pandemic. So at the end of the day, cyber criminals are a few steps ahead of us. Maybe they are smarter, who knows, right? And that is what we want to discuss today. And the question we have here is whether blockchain technology is a potential solution, or are we just discussing a magical pill here, right? So today I have with three spectacular thought leaders who are going to help us discuss the various challenges. We have Kevin McGrail, Rolf Haas, and Professor Jörg Molt. We'll start with a round of introductions, followed by initial thoughts from each of our speakers, followed by an interactive conversation. So please feel free to share your comments and questions in the chat. So with that, Kevin, I think let me hand you over the floor. Please share your slides and please share your thoughts with us.
Absolutely. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Kevin A. McGrail, but most people just know me as Cam, which is very fitting because Cam is an off-brand Canadian spam from Maple Leaf. That is my avatar on LinkedIn. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn if you're interested in talking about all this various technology, cybersecurity, crypto, phishing, etc. One of my number one areas of expertise is in phishing, and so I thought it would be kind of interesting to talk about that today. Do you want me to go ahead and do a couple of minutes presentation now, Shiv? Okay. All right. Well, what I really wanted to start with was just kind of an introduction to some of the phishing. A lot of people have seen this, so I am probably talking to the choir here. But when you're using cryptocurrency, we see a lot of issues. We see some basic premises that just don't get followed with cryptocurrency. So let me see if I can go ahead and get it going. Yeah. So my role, I work as the principal evangelist at Dido. At Dido, we help you migrate, manage, and secure your public clouds, especially Google. Lots of fun stuff about me here, but key things that I would point out is I've been 3 honorariums with Google because, they need volunteers. So I volunteer as a workspace top contributor, a Google developer expert, and an ambassador. And I'm also a member of the U.S. Marine Corps Cyber Auxiliary. So enough about me. The key things that I like when I talk about cryptocurrency, phishing, bad actors, any of these type of concepts is I really like just starting off with the thing that, you have to think evil. One of the things I generally joke about is that I consider myself 95% good, 3% altruistic, and 2% evil. But I try to use that evil for good purposes because, you've got to try and think like the bad actors and hopefully before they do to try and get it done. And so the first thing I always try and teach people when you're thinking about cryptocurrency, when you're thinking about technology on the web, is think about threat modeling. Threat modeling is just a way of just going down and doing exercises. What attack surfaces do you have? How would bad actors get access to them? How would they do it? So, if you work for a bank, it'd be like, okay, how could robbers rob my bank? And then you think about mitigating factors to stop them from robbing the bank. And that type of threat modeling is very important because rarely do we do a threat model exercise where we don't come up with some new unique concept that's going on and things that are happening. MITRE, which is a nonprofit pseudo-governmental organization in the United States, has come out with a wonderful framework called the ATT&CK framework. And what it lets you do is go down various concepts, both in informational technology cyber and operational technology cyber, which is new. I think they did it in, I won't mention names, they did it in combination with another company in that world. But for those of you who aren't familiar with OT cyber, IT cyber is what most people think of when they think of cyber. That's your things like your firewalls and your virus scanners and everything like that. But there's a whole other world of cybersecurity that actually has been getting a whole lot of press in the news very recently in the US because a water treatment plan had the lye or the sodium hydrochloroxide chloride. Yeah, I think that's right. Anyway, got to go back to my chemistry. And they messed up the formulas that were used for treating the water. It was caught and all those type of issues, but that is what we call an OT cyber attack. And one of the quick things, Mark Rohrbaugh is with InfraShield has a great definition, which I love using for operational technology. Operational technology is anything that touches the physical world. So a garage door opener that's connected to a Nest, that could be operational technology. Building access control, motor operated valves, and the PLCs that were used in the attack in Florida on the water plant, those are operational technology. And unfortunately, operational technology is usually very old. So what we try and do is we try and study existing what's called techniques, tactics, and procedures, or TTPs, and learn from those to then do the threat modeling. So attack is a great way to do that. Palo Alto Networks also has a Unit 42 named after Douglas Adams. Thank you for those who read him. But the great playbooks there, and the idea is learn about what the bad actors are doing, and get an idea so that you can protect against it. But I also usually joke and say, read more spy novels, because a lot of these ideas are thought of, years and decades ago. In particular, the Florida thing, I feel like Chicken Little, because we have been telling critical infrastructure that these issues occur for years, if not decades. And in fact, HBO Vice had a company that was bought by Tenable called Indigee, in 2017, did a demonstration of a water treatment attack, a water treatment plant attack. So we've known about this for years. We're not doing anything about it. We need to wake up and do that. So anyway, that's my think evil speech. That's kind of the tone setter to kind of go in. But what I really want to talk about is cryptocurrency and some of the issues I deal with. So my phone typically rings at least once a week, oftentimes more, with somebody who is in tears dealing with some sort of cyber attack, phishing especially, monetary loss, bank accounts, payroll, loss of cryptocurrency wallets. And some of these are very complicated and some of them aren't. But one of the most common things that you can do that's very simple is switch your concept of using passwords to using passphrases. So, for example, people used to joke that, never use your anniversary as a password. Well, I kind of joke and say, yes, use your anniversary as a password, but make it something like, my wedding anniversary is January 1, 2021. By doing that, it's very long. We'll talk about the science behind that in the next slide. It's extremely difficult to brute force. It's also extremely easy to remember. And it serves the purpose of, if you forget your wedding anniversary, you have no excuses. So things like that, favorite song lyrics, something very, very long. NIST, or the National Institute of Standards and Technologies in the United States, the digital identity guidelines changed 3 summers ago now. Most people aren't aware of this, but basically what they said, and Microsoft did some great studies around this as well, get rid of complicated passwords, things that use, ampersands and bangs and hash symbols and stuff like that. They aren't secure. They cause people to use patterns that don't make the passwords more secure. And excuse me, let me take a drink. In the world I work in, and especially used to work in, passwords are something that could not be written down, could not be recorded, couldn't use a passphrase manager, things like that. And so if you have a password that is so complex that you need to write it down, it is automatically less secure than something that you can remember. Additionally, something else that a lot of people see, if you're used to using systems that reset your password every 30 or 90 days, for example, that has also been proven to be completely insecure. So if you have administrators that are doing that, talk to them. I've had the NIST guidelines that you can specifically follow for this, that you should not just arbitrarily require password changes and not use complex passwords. What you want to use is long passwords. And there's a wonderful website out there for you technologists. That's called XKCD. It's lots of humor. It's kind of like Dilbert on steroids, technologically wise. But here, what you can see, this was actually quite a few years ago. You can see like they have Troubadour here written in what we would call leet speak, and they've replaced characters with special, numbers and characters. And you can see that even with that complicated password, you're only looking at 28 bits of entropy, which several years ago was just a few days of cracking power. By the comparison, 4 dictionary words chosen randomly, all lowercase, nothing special about them, has 44 bits of entropy. That represents many, many, many years of cracking power. Now, computers are always going to get faster, quantum computing's coming and whatnot, but you can see very quickly that length of passwords is much more important than complexity of passwords. All right. So now we kind of get to cryptocurrency, and the key thing, cryptocurrency has some amazing benefits. It's very easy to use. It's got a lack of fiat controls. It's got no centralized authority, and it produces anonymity. I put a question mark next to that because it's been pushed off to the fall, but I'll be doing a talk on de-anonymizing cryptocurrency. I've done work with various federal agencies. If you think cryptocurrency is anonymous, you're probably wrong. So the bad part, of course, is that all of these benefits to cryptocurrency are also benefits to bad actors. And so what we try and do is think about how we can do this with a threat model, how we can look at the real issues. And so to look at what the scammers do, what the phishers do out there, we have to look at the psychology of scams. And if any of you are familiar with my CAM rule set for Apache Spam Assassin, you can look at the CRIM rule set, CRIM as in criminal. What that largely focuses on is the cryptocurrency and the sextortion type of scams, or what we refer to them are. And you have to understand the psychology of a scam is built on what's called a con artist. And con artists are nothing new. The scams around things like Nigerian princes have been around for a long time, well over 100 years, long predating email, and didn't always focus on countries like Nigeria. They usually just used an exotic, faraway location. That's all they were trying to evoke. But con artist is short for confidence artists. And what they try and do is they try and get your confidence. And by doing that, they can then escalate things. And their number one goal is to separate your emotion from your logic. The number one thing I hear when I'm dealing with incident responses is 10 seconds after I did it, I knew I shouldn't have. And anything you can do to gain that 10 seconds is what you want to get. You want to have good concepts for doing this. Now, some of the ways they get this separation of emotion from logic is things like I was talking about, sextortion scams. They use blackmail. They use an undue sense of urgency, like they pretend to be your boss and they need something right away or you're going to get fired. And people don't think. I mean, I talk to smart people all the time, and they're like, I have no idea why I just went and bought $10,000 worth of iTunes cards and then scanned them and emailed them to somebody. It made no sense whatsoever until 10 seconds after I did it. And then the deed's already done. So they try and gain your confidence. They try and get your separate from your emotion from your logic. So do whatever you can that fixes that problem.
Kevin,
So,
sorry to interrupt you.
no,
Are you
please.
changing slides? Sorry, are you changing slides? Because I think I am still stuck on the think you will. Okay,
No
now
worries.
it's changing. Yeah,
Are you
okay.
seeing the one that says safe use of cryptocurrency?
Yes, I can see it now. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So when you're using cryptocurrency, some of the things I like to mention to people, especially if you're not an expert in things like PKI encryption, or you don't even know what PKI stands for, use a good wallet manager. I like Coinbase. They do a great job of educating people. They do a good job of separating your wallets, just really good. So if you don't know what to do and you're dipping your feet into cryptocurrency, they're a great way to look at it. Additionally, set up multi-factor authentication. This is something that I think everybody on the panel will probably tell you. If you ask me one thing you could do to improve your cyber posture, it would be to use multi-factor authentication. It stops, no exaggeration, 99.99 and a whole bunch more 9% of the attacks. Multi-factor can be compromised. You can certainly go read edge cases of it. I have worked in what is basically called cyber for almost 3 decades. I have yet to work on a case where multi-factor authentication was part of the compromise. So use it. Additionally, and this one's a little bit controversial, but basically, especially in the US, if you're doing purchases with crypto, consider doing crypto to fiat conversion first. Fiat, by the way, is just what you would call like the US dollar or the euro. It's just, what we call traditional currency. The reason that you do the conversions is for a couple of reasons. But for example, crypto can kind of disappear and there's no centralized authority. There's no way to track it. Whereas, for example, if you transfer it to fiat currency and use your credit card here in the US, for example, in many countries worldwide, there's very, very strong credit protection acts that protect you. Crypto has to come up to speed on those type of issues because otherwise people can just say, sorry, I didn't get your money. You might be able to prove that they got it through the ledger, but at the end of the day, the onus is on you because the law isn't really going to support you. And I don't think there's many law enforcement agencies out there that are really going to be well trained and able to handle something like hey, I sent 4 Bitcoins to this person and they owe me $200,000, but they claim they didn't get it. And I don't think you're going to get very far. So the next thing that you have to realize is cloud resources are targets. I was talking with one of actually our VP of cloud, and one of the things he was talking about is the vast number of Fortune 1000 companies that they worked with that they found crypto miners on their public cloud. It seems to be one of the major reasons that bad actors are trying to compromise the cloud is to run crypto miners, because to some extent, I think there's little ramifications. They get kicked off the server, but after that, for the most part, people and law enforcement isn't going to really go after them too much. So you have to realize they're a target. So how do you prevent crypto mining malware? Well, CSO Online did a great article on how to detect and prevent crypto mining online. Additionally, if you're using GCP or Google's cloud platform, the Google Cloud Security Command Center, or SCC, has a great concept. It does what we call detecting and responding to high-risk threats. One of those threats you'll notice if you go read the instructions is crypto mining, and that basically just detects crypto mining malware. It does it by examining known bad domains and mining pools and other log data to find out whether or not you probably have a crypto miner on your network. And I won't go into this too far in depth, but the big thing is that if you're using the cloud, you're using crypto, it really demands a new strategy. People are used to how to protect their bank accounts. They're used to how to protect their accounting systems. They're used to how to protect their on-prem servers. That doesn't work when you're protecting crypto wallets. It doesn't work when you're protecting your public cloud. A lot of times I talk to people and it's like, hey, I've got a hard drive here with a wallet on it, and it's triple encrypted, and I lost the password and the hard drive died. And I don't give people many hopes that they're going to get that data back. And many people in the last few weeks have been contacting. Bitcoin hit 47,000. I don't know what it's at right now today, but they've been calling and saying, hey, my software is telling me I've got 10 more tries on the password to unlock my wallet before it permanently locks it forever. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Think about it really heavily before you type 10 more times. So anyway, my final thought, and then I'm very, very interested in the panelists and the thoughts from the audience or the questions you have. But I did a talk in December for comptrollers and payroll handlers, and I was very mad because it was for CPEs, continuing education credit type stuff, and they made me take this slide out. And no joke, I had to send the slides in, I think in November, and then they had to be approved. And I gave the speech on like November 1st or December 1st, excuse me. December 3rd, the US Treasury came out with guidance saying, do not pay ransoms. And some of the things that a lot of people aren't familiar with, especially for US citizens, if you pay ransoms through any means, credit card, Bitcoins, whatever, you can run afoul of what's called CFIUS. That's sanctioned entities in the United States. So if that money ends up in the bank account of a foreign entity that's on the sanctions list, you can be in some very serious trouble. You can also run afoul of the Anti-Terrorism Act. You also can have something that threat that scares a lot of companies worse, which is the primary and secondary liability. So, for example, if a bad actor hits me up, I pay a ransom, that money is then used to do another attack on another company, and they can do a chain of events back. I can be liable for that other company's attack liabilities and whatnot. And what I really think we need is, in the US, there was a very big event that occurred about 100 years ago with the Lindbergh kidnapping. Charles Lindbergh, was a famous air pilot, and his child was kidnapped and killed. When that occurred in the United States, what happened? There was outrage around the world, and the US, the federal agencies got jurisdiction on child kidnapping. And in the US, there's some interesting concepts around state and local jurisdictions that occur in these type of things. But the states did not in any way, shape, or form say, I'm sorry, this is a separation of federal powers versus state powers. We don't want this going. No, they supported it 100% because they had to basically tell the kidnappers that if they kidnapped a child, they were going to have the full force of every law enforcement agency around the country on their backs. They weren't just going to be able to hide in another state. And we need this type of system worldwide right now for bad actors, for cryptocurrency, because with the lack of fiat currency, with the lack of a jurisdiction, what we need is treaties that get this to the point where these people can't hide, and we can stop cryptocurrency from being used by bad actors and get to what it can be used for which is amazing good worldwide and whatnot. So anyway, thank you so much. I am on LinkedIn. I will be here for the next hour or two. You get to hear me blather if they're dumb enough to give me a microphone. And thank you so much for listening. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Kevin. That was very, very interesting. I think over to Rolf. Rolf, do you want to introduce yourself? And in case you want to share any slides,
Yeah,
we can
sure,
go ahead.
absolutely. Thank you, guys, and good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. And thank you for the stage here today. I think it's my first time to present here in this audience a bit my view on blockchain and security. So, as a short introduction from my side, I'm 50 years old and I'm based here in Europe, in Germany, working over 20 years now for McAfee in different roles. Right now, I'm it calls an advanced technology specialist for cloud, which is basically the parts on CASB, SASE, and everything which is around infrastructure, platform, and software as a service in the cloud. We do protection there, and I'm acting here as a data specialist in here in EMEA for our key accounts. But one of my other topics is I'm working with our CTO team in US in a couple of side projects, and one of those side projects was the identification of blockchain in security products. And I want to give you some insights what we're trying to do, maybe in the future or not, but what is maybe our vision on blockchain in combination with cybersecurity. As you know, blockchain must be only or can be only secure if you have an existing PKI, if it's transparently, no backrooms, no dark rooms, and it's completely distributed. So this is not anything which is new, but what is the hype and versus reality? And I think I want to pick up here one piece. For example, one remark is always blockchain is 100% secure, impossible to fork, fake, or something like that. But it's not, right? Because it all depends on the algorithm and the weakest point in the situation, which could be the wallet, could be the private key, could be the storage of those private information. And this is what we're trying to cover in different use cases. So I would jump from some slides here. It's just a short pitch, which I want to give you here, a kind of elevator pitch in regards of how you can secure, for example, your wallet, your private key. Yeah, different ways around. I want not to reintroduce all this well-known information. But as you may know, right, what you can do is you can also use an seed generator. And maybe you know that, right? So in the past, there was some ransomware in the cloud or in the web where people could generate a private key, and they thought, okay, I'm safe. Everything is done with random stuff around, but it was not, right? So maybe you have saw or you have seen that in the past what was possible to recalculate or to go back into the hashes of those private keys. But this is, I think, not the topic for my part today. I want to give you a little bit an overview what are typical use cases. And sorry to jump for some slides, but just to make sure, what is the biggest concerns, right? So when we talk about the private key, for example, how to move a private key from one person to another, or how to store a private key information, this could be something which has also been used by a blockchain concept. And I want to give you some insight what ideas we have figured out to use a blockchain in the back end to store, for example, additional decryption keys or advanced decryption keys for the government, for example, because in some use cases, it makes maybe sense that some identities needs to go to a private key in an emergency situation, because the private key owner is not available. And you want to make sure that on the one hand side, the key is, of course, protected well and good, the private key in a blockchain. And also you can follow up in the after situation who had access to the private key and who was involved in that situation. For example, if the private key needs to be recovered from that infrastructure. So long story short here is you need to have a solution which we have in a blockchain concept that you can split up, for example, the private key into different, let's say, fault providers. And those are usually competitors. There are maybe institutions which are not working together, maybe different governments who are owning partially a specific key information, and so on. And so what we did is we find a modeling where you can split up a specific key into, let's say, M nodes, an amount of M nodes. And you need a 50% plus one of those nodes to recover a specific private key. So let's jump into some use cases which we figured out. And I want not to show you all of those use cases, but what is maybe yeah, in Germany, for example, we have this health data emergency cards now for to print up in a card your health information, your insurance information, etc., etc. So health data. So typically, you as a person will own this data card, and you have this responsibility, and you will say, okay, my doctor is allowed to see that, or my insurance company is to see that, etc. But what's happened when you go into an emergency room? You have a car accident, and somebody needs to have access on this private information and security card which you own with you, but you cannot gain the access because you are in a healthy critical situation. So if, for example, this key, private key information will be also stored in a blockchain, different actors could be involved, like the doctor, the emergency room, or maybe the insurance company, who gain together access in a specific situation to the private key to have access to the health data, right? And this private key, of course, is split it up in a blockchain concept. So you as an affected person, you cannot do something because you are in the emergency room, but you can follow up afterwards when you are back in the room in a recovery mode, and you can see maybe in a trail, okay, who had access on my health data because of why? Because you were in a healthy situation, right? So this could be a great information or great follow up information for people who wants to know, okay, who had access to some critical data, and all those data again has been split up in a blockchain concept. Another thing which I like to heat out was the FBI Apple encryption dispute. Maybe you have remember that in San Bernardino a couple of years back, the terrorists has been used iPhones and the iCloud to do something, and Apple was asked by the FBI, right? Can we have access to the cloud and give me the data which has been stored for these guys in the cloud? But also Apple said, no, we can't, because the private key is the owner of those guys, which are dead at this point, and we don't have access to the phone data or to the iCloud data at all. But also here, right, if different, let's say, untrusted members per se are involved or have been involved to store the private key of this iPhone, let's say, for example, the US government, the Russian government, the UK government, the German government, Japanese government, and everybody has a piece of this key involved. It's mostly unlikely that all those governments are going to a dark room and saying, okay, I want to get the private key of Jörg Molt, for example, because we don't like him and we want to get this private key from his phone. But in an emergency situation, let's say if somebody who used an iPhone has been involved in a terrorist attack, it's maybe likely officially that then the Russian government, the US government, the Germans, the Japanese, whatever, are saying, okay, in this case, we get approved to get a key recovery of this private key from this distributed blockchain concept from different governments into the cloud and bring them back to the situation that we get access or getting a backdoor access. Somehow we created some use cases here and described that a little bit. And one of the key factor here is also how you can transfer and how you can store a decryption key in a distributed wallet, because this is the key method, right, to go around. And we developed a concept, which is here just a high level picture here, even how to do that with a delay of time, or even, for example, in a terroristic situation, or let's say in a way that somebody gets access to a private key, which is part of a mobile phone, because your iPhone private key has been distributed. What you can do is, for example, if a person gets under the law restrictions that somebody wants to monitor this iPhone, again, maybe some other legal laws, identities from an organization get success in this blockchain concept. And what you can do as a normal person in that economy of an iPhone user, you can maybe double check if your key has already been as code or used as an additional decryption key by any of those organizations, because the logging mechanism of the access to the keys, of course, is also part in the blockchain concept. So everybody is able to look afterwards. Is my private key, for example, a part of these of this key as code situation, or in that way that some organizations needs to have access on it. So a discussion which we can have maybe today is also if make this kind of concept sense, because a blockchain per se is an ecosystem where of course you need 50% plus to get some valid arguments. But the question here is, can we use blockchain for as a technology to store private key information in a world of not trusted? And this is again the key point. I jump back to the slide. Those vault providers, the nodes, are usually competitors or people or organizations which do not do a conspirations between to go into a dark room and say, okay, let's recover this private key, right? Again, so also for cloud business, and I think Kevin, you are working also a lot with cloud. I heard, right, with Google and so on.
Absolutely.
Different use cases, right? I mean, from the security point of view at McAfee, we thought about the competitors between the antivirus sector, or even with cloud security, or cloud storages like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle, Apple. It's unlikely they work together in specific ways, but if the nodes are split up in those different organizations, and in an emergent situation, people needs to get access to a specific private key, or let's say private key. You have an ecosystem behind the scenes, which makes the life much more easier and safer, because nobody can go into, as I said before, into a dark room and do something, right? And the same is, as I said before, for governments, right? Okay, the world goes bigger, and I mean, cryptocurrency does not see any borders, of course, right? But the interests of the governance are still local interests, right? And if you have different, let's say, governments in general involved in a specific situation, it's maybe more secure for everybody, just in case somebody needs to get access to a specific private key, right? it's just a discussion which I like to give you up here. Um, Not to follow up with some further slides. I can share the slides, no problem. But that was some ideas which we created, and we found a specific use case, by the way, even for our own products. For example, we are offering a product for disk encryption, and normally you can go to the admin, and if you know the admin, you can tell to the admin, hey guy, please do a key recovery of that laptop because I need to have access on it. And people with the right admin rights in the management system are maybe able to follow up with the additional decryption key to get access on this hard disk, right? On this disk encryption from a specific employee. And if you put that situation into a blockchain concept, you need to have maybe different actors involved, like the working counselors, the president of the company, some human resources people or others who had the permission set to gain access to the private key for the disk encryption. And those will be locked into a blockchain bag. So everybody is able to see who had really access to my private key of the disk afterwards, right? So, so I think this is also something where more and more blockchain, even mini blockchain concepts will be established in the industry because it makes the life for everybody much more easier, and even you have a full set of control what was happening with that above, right? So yeah, that's my short pitch on what I think in regards of blockchain and security, and I'm happy to discuss with you further. Thanks.
Thank you, Rolf. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and insights. We'll come back to questions, but before that, I want to take the stage and please share your initial thoughts on the subject. And then I think if you want to comment on what Kevin and Rolf has shared, I think that would also be a good start.
Yes. Um, Let me introduce myself a little bit. I'm working in the blockchain space and this cryptocurrency space now for almost more than 10 years, since the beginning of Bitcoin. And I had a lot of knowledge from database services before. So for this topic, I was going to talk to you because I coming from a hacking scene, beginning with the Commodore computers in the very first beginning, hacking games, hacking database structures, or whatever you want to hack. I'm part of an ethical team who is hacking DLTs, for example, for balance reasons. We'll talk about later about that, what that means. And yes, my four speakers mentioned a lot of problems could be fixed by blockchain maybe, or there are a lot of questions left behind. So if you think about the phishing attacks and things. Today, to give you an overview a little bit, I can name you instantly 35 different attack forms in hacking. So hacking is not more about how to hack a blockchain itself or hack a system itself. Or hacking is today not that kind that some people sitting in a room and it's a dusty room and they sit and code and code and code and code and code, and then someone is going to the company, I will say, hidden as an electrical member, and he has to work on the servers or something like that. That's what you see in the spy movies. Okay, so hacking today is I would say a nearly quietly improved process which you can do by pressing a knob of a software from a hacker. That's the reason, and this is why I want to talk to you first about the principles about hacking in our environment. So the environment, what was talked here, is a situation that we stuck in the environment. Our problem today is that our economy has built on a system which is outdated in the and I would say in the setup of the software and hardware. Even a DLT system is using the old terms how we set up servers and clients. A DLT is nothing more than an SQL database, which is changing the way how we get trust into the data, because we relate it now to a ledger, which is giving us a number, a unique number, and a timestamp. But that doesn't mean that we haven't got a timestamp and number-based server inside. For example, thinking about IBM was working with Hyperledger, and this is the most acknowledged blockchain we had today, because it's similar to people who work on the DOS on the DOS system. So IT people can easily set up a blockchain system with knowledge about DOS, and it's similar to other concepts. So even Hyperledger has a container, a central database inside. So what happens to this is, and we talk about the private keys. I will tell you later a little bit more about how we extract private keys out of a system. This is something which has never been changed. Another thing is we're talking about in this new world about smart contracts. A smart contracts is nothing as a Visual Basic script from Excel, because it was someone who filtered out that we can extract the Excel macros out into a DLT system and use it there, for transacting data, or divide data, or turn them into pieces or whatever. So, and all systems, it's a second layer solution. That means it is not connected to the security of the entire network. It's on top of that, and that makes it visible and makes it attackable, because we can go for a stack attack, for example. So what we had in another use case is, for example, when it comes to the hack of the US Treasury, for example, that was a simple online hack which was bypassing the 2FA. So let me tell a little bit more about 2FA factor to secure your data or something like this. The danger in 2FA is two ways. The first way is, as on the DEFCON was, DEFCON 5 shows how easy it is to bypass a logarithm of a 2FA, even if you use the Google Authenticator. They have done it in 2 minutes, and they brute force the whole chain code from the Google Authenticator. It was very nice to see. The Chaos Computer Club in Germany, for example, extract a whole root key for that. So what happens is we can go into the system and we can bypass this. But the biggest problem is on the user side. If you lose your 2FA, you lose your access, and with the access you haven't got any access to your cryptocurrencies or whatever you protect with that, because the setup and the reset routine is heavenly. I give you a good example. For example, if you, for example, use Green Wallet, which is the most secured privacy wallet in the world today, because it was built by Blockstream, and Blockstream is built by a former guy who was one of the first guys and has done invention to the Bitcoin network. So what they use is, if you take on, for example, 2FA, the 2FA is kind of your backup key. So now you have the problem that you have your root key, which is shown in the app. You can use it, but you can't use it without the backup key. So you need both keys. So if you lost the 2FA, you can't recreate the backup key to sign. That means you have a procedure where you have to reset the whole system by typing in some comments on an operating system, and choose to figuring out how the block time is, where the keys, where the timestamp of the 2FA will be void. So if you know the block time, then you can access the backup key, but it's normally about 3 months. So what you see, even this technology with hash locks or something like that, is a nice thing, but for the user who has the funds in there and can't recover that, it is quite a big problem. Another thing is, what I will do as a hacker, if I'm going for a government site which is using 2FA, for example, I just will change the site into terms of logic that I disable the functionality that you can type in the 2FA. So what would you like think if a pop-up is coming and saying, please type in the 2FA from Google Authenticator, and you haven't got a field where you can type it? You are lost. So the message is shown, but there's no field. So you can't type anything. And that way, as a hacker, I kept you out of the system very easily, because I only have to change the booleans of the website and the boot strings in the website. And so I redirect you to another site which I'm in there, and there is no possibility to type in a 2FA. In that case, all your credentials lost. You call the company, you can't type in. They look at the website and see a totally normal website and say, hey, you can type in. But as I rerouted you the first time, I know from which server you are coming, which IP addresses you use, even if you use your own domain name services. I will like go to a DNS spoof, for example. So you never can access again because I infiltrated you. So what happens with all this technology is that we are messing around with the private keys, and no private key ever has been hacked. There's no case that a private key has ever been stolen, because if the key is on chain and no one knows the key, no one can access. On the other hand, if the key is stored on your side, and this is more important, that we learn about self-responsibility and self-sovereignty in keeping our keys. It is not that we go for a custody service and say, hey guy, please take care about my keys. Because in the moment you go with your keys to the custodial service, your keys are centralized. For example, the BitGo hack. BitGo is a totally custodial service. It's one of the most secured wallets ever, and it's also used by institutional investors and everything. So, and when they hacked um, the keys and they break into the system, because the keys are stored outside and they need also multi-signature key or something like that, there was a man-in-the-middle attack. So that means someone who is working for the company, who is keeping the keys on the storage, which is outside, has been built the bridge to get them out and signing with the backup key and the security key without having the private key. So there we had the man-in-the-middle attack. So on the other hand, we had a lot of attacks on DLT systems. For example, if you Ethereum is a good example. Ethereum was always think about the DAO hack, for example. This is one with the smart contracts. So Ethereum used to store his keys and protect them with hash-locked smart contracts. So because on Ethereum it's a second layer solution, they will always be object of attack, and this is because the software. Smart contracts mostly written in Solidity for Ethereum and for DeFi world and for whatever. So it's likely that we use Solidity smart contracts provide governments with smart contracts. So what is the problem with Solidity? Solidity, if you remember the parity hack, when we froze a lot of accounts from Ethereum, which are based on Solidity and the parity version, was able because we can see the ingredients of a smart contract from outside. So this is not hidden. When Rootstock was built, this is a side chain. Rootstock was built as a blockchain as a service and want to provide Ethereum. The Ethereum Foundation was saying to Rootstock, we don't need your services. Rootstock is now connected to Bitcoin to make DeFi happen on Bitcoin, because the smart contracts in Rootstock are encrypted in a totally different way. You can use even Ethereum smart contracts inside that, but they will be encrypted on the side chain. That means from a hacking point, it's for us really, really hard try to get into the smart contract. It's not that we can't expect the chain itself. It's more about how we encrypt the data and decrypt the data. So then the possibility, for example, in transactions and blockchains and DLT systems is that we have a lot of unencrypted data there. So think about, we want to make a world happens in Internet of Things, for example. So we have to encrypt and decrypt tons of millions and hundreds of millions data in a second. So this will slow down every system we used to be today. So the problem of the speed of encrypting and decrypting is another problem where a hacker gets in. Even if you have only, I will say 70 nanoseconds delay, a code can just creep in this time into this break of encrypting and decrypting. So this is only one thing. Another thing is when we talk about ransomware or something like that. Ransomware and phishing is not a hack. These are based on the thing that we do not take care about our data's structure, how we save them to a hard disk, for example. So why can a ransomware encrypt all the data and get access to that? Because we use the old system of FAT32 or FAT16, for example, or journals on Mac. This is for years standard to write data on a hard disk drive. So this standard's always known, and I know how I can do a FAT33 or FAT16 to encrypt and decrypt in seconds by my own without having the necessary of a ransomware. But the owners of the ransomware knows exactly how they have to address this structure. So what happens is another thing is ransomwares are not new. We had ransomwares in the 2000s. We had phishings in the 2000s. Another thing is that the IT departures of the companies not able to change their system. It's not about having a heavily environment where every email is open and then with simulation or a sandbox system. It's more about that an email is working on a proxy service for emails, and before it is open, a copy is made, and then it's open and stop from writing that email to a backup system. This is easy. We had some very good examples in the 2000s how to work with the proxies and around that, because otherwise no plane will leave the airport today. We had the problems at the airports I would say in 1998 and to 2021. So this is an ongoing process. So we know about all of that, but companies still not not willed to pay for the services to change that. So they wait for the hardest case. So always when we see hackers not coming from a point that they really want to hack, it's easy for them to creep in. So another thing is, for example, you have an IT Microsoft server system with Exchange or something like that. So we're working with libraries. So never we have changed in the past 10 years the library system of Windows, for example. So library Windows system is the reason why we have all the Trojans and the hijacking viruses or whatever you want to call them. Yeah. So that's the problem of the library system of the Microsoft system, but they never changed the system itself. So, and as we go ongoing into a digital world and a digital transformation process, for example, in this world, we are using old technology, which we are thinking we can make safe. This is like you have a building, and the building is a public building, and the facility manager is going through the public building, and instead of investing money to keep that building up for the next 10 years in a modern way, he just has to fix the problems because there is no money. So as long we fix that, as long there are the problems. You can see that, for example, every version of the Apple iOS, I can jailbreak. This is not because Apple is not able to fix the problem. It is about that there are bugs in there. Ethereum, for example, as a research from Mike Effie has done, John McAfee was doing a research in former times in 2017, was figuring out that Ethereum itself has 600 bugs. So and now, what is about, it is not recoding Ethereum to zero, it's an upgrade to proof of stake, which is the next big problem from Ethereum. Because everyone is saying, okay, we do not waste energy costs, okay? Because they do not understand that the energy waste is not the security of the Bitcoin network. They all believe it, but they haven't got really an idea what the security is in there. So what happens is they go for proof of stake. Proof of stake has, for example, two problems. I can do an overflow of a node. That means division by zero. What happens there? I start on a POS system, a smart contract, which leads the node into writing data because they think this is the data necessary for keeping up the ledger. So what happens is in a time of 5 hours, I will have done 500 gigabyte on data on your node, and it stacks. In a POS system, if I have a validator node and this validator node stacks, all the other nodes keeping trouble by checking the data because they want to make sure that this node is right or not, and they slow down. That means we will extend the block time of a POS system. Unfortunately, this is only one attack. Another attack of a POS is, for example, I can reset POS. So if I trigger the network, I can do a software reset and make the system believe that something is going wrong, and then they will reset it. And I, for example, keep my coins on a cold storage. Then I trigger the reset. They are recovered in my hot wallet, and then I send from the cold storage my coins back to the hot wallet and have a double spend. So because in proof of stake, there is no prevention of the Byzantine protocol in that checking. So you see, we went from one problem into another problem, and we do not accept that the technology we used to be has to change in a way that it is not a matter for a hack going there. For example, if we use interplanetary file system for exchange data on nodes and networks for IoT, for example. You can't hack that because the Internet Planetary File System is totally different from FAT32, from FAT16, or a journal entrance. So what I mean is, if we use new technologies and we want to create a world which is in a digital transformation process, and you want to create trust in that, first we have to take control over the software and the hardware we use today and change it in a rapidly way, and we must do it consequently. The next thing, if we want to stay secure, is that we have to really go away from open source, because every good hacker studies the open source and find the flaws. So open source is might a trustful thing for you to say, okay, the software is not sending informations hidden, but on the other side, I get the concept of the software and can go for re-engineering or something like that and find the flaws in the system and creep in. So that is the second thing we have to change. And the third and most important thing is we are thinking in a trustless world that we have to trust. As long as we are thinking that we have to have a trusty system in a trustless system, and the data will be sent to a checking point, I will say. And I figuring out in a block DLT system where the checking point is and which nodes are doing the checking for the government, for example, I can still overflow them. So these are the points we have to make a decision in for our future life if we want to transmit data. And this is only to give you a little bit around that you get more an insight what hacking is. Hacking today is really a challenge for concepting. It's not a technology problem. And this is only possible because this world stuck into a technology which has to build on principles, and these principles outdated. Thank you.
Thank you, Jörg. So I think we have discussed some very, I think, interesting topics, and I think some quite complicated ones as well. And I would like to now basically take this opportunity to peel the layers, right? And I want to start with a very simple question. I would like to basically, I think, to ask this question to each one of you, and if you can share your thoughts on this question. Are we giving too much credit to the smartness of cyber criminals versus basically the lack of common sense, right? Because we have seen that a lot of these cybersecurity incidents that happen, they happen because of basic mistakes, right? Passwords being written on pieces of paper, or doors being left unlocked, and so many other things, right? So let's start there, where obviously there are a lot of cases where technology can solve the problem, but I think the key question is whether the cyber criminal is more smart than the people in general.
Sure, I'll jump in on that. So that's something we deal with a lot. I didn't really go into it too much with the psychology of scams, but if anybody who's ever seen a Nigerian scam or has seen a fish that has a lot of bad misspellings and things like that, have probably wondered, are cyber criminals that bad? Can they not spell? Are they, can't they come up with better hacks? And the interesting concept around that's posited is that they purposely do them with these bad errors because, when you have, like, for example, a phishing email, the phishing email that the person reads is step 1 of 8 steps, 20 steps, whatever that's needed to actually have the scam finished. And so what a lot of people project is that they are doing very dumb systems so that basically they pre-screen people who are going to fall for steps 2 through 8 by having a very bad step 1. So the thing I tell people is that there is a significant difference between opportunistic, which are the people that just send out lots and lots of fishes out there to tons and tons of people, versus persistent threats that are targeted at specific people or companies. And let me assure you that those attacks can be extremely well thought out, well done, very good cyber criminals. So I think the problem is that what you're looking at is a predetermined case. The people that fall for dumb things are pre-screened by those simple things. So if you don't have good basic cyber hygiene, you're going to get a lot of very bad simplistic attacks. But do not kid yourself. There are some very elegant attacks, and I often have to caveat that I use the term elegant. It's not a term that I'm impressed by their stuff or that I'm awed by it. It's a term of art. It just has to do with how much resources, how well it's done, versus how many resources are used on the other side to combat it. So that would be my statement.
Yeah, well, when I can also add a statement here, I have seen many attacks, whatever it is, which are we saying low and slow. Saying that is you don't have a lot of footprints. It takes a lot of time to do a specific attack to a specific person in an organization, for example. I'm not saying to a private person, but to an organization point of view, to hide in that huge amount of other traffic, the the sophisticated dedicated attack to a specific person. And most of those attacks are combined with social engineering, as you mentioned also before, right? What is your marriage day or whatever as a passphrase, right? That is one thing, but it is today really so easy to create with meta exploit a PDF, for example, which will be bypassed by many standard antivirus solutions in an organization. And due to the fact that everybody is now working from home in this COVID-19 situation, people are really not very well protected in a private environment. And if you get an advertisement because you are saying on your LinkedIn profile, you are a favorite golf player in your free time, and somebody creates a PDF document which invites you just a few miles away for a new, let's say, a golf place. And of course you are interested because you are a golf favorite player, and you will get a social engineering email, a phishing email, which was really created for you, dedicated for you. That is, I think, the most critical thing which I see specifically when people trying to steal or to aim keyloggers or other things in an organization or in a target place. So I'm not sure how often you guys see that in your organizations, from the audience or from the government point of view, or even from the industry. But I have been also involved in many government investigations here in Europe, and it's sometimes really crazy what people doing as an effort or as an investment to do a small and low and slow attack to one dedicated specific person. Yeah.
Okay, your thoughts on this simplistic question?
I think also a focus is on not even on the hacks, but more of centralizing through the vendors who are hosting this technology. So think about we had a couple 2 years ago we had this field when AWS servers stuck to work. So they didn't explain today how it could be that their servers not working. So think about your project is related to Google servers, Amazon servers, or Apple servers. So I see a danger in the centralism of the companies providing storage for the DLT systems, for example, because it's easy to set up a DLT on this companies. So this has a lot of consequences in this world, because we said, okay, there's no chance because we have immutable records. But if we can't access them, there is another problem through that. And the hacker maybe do not want to go for hacking your system at all, because he doesn't know if you have a private chain for your transcriptions anywhere, but he knows that 95% of the systems running through an hosted service. So if you shut down the hosted service as a hacker, you can make more terrorism to the people than other way. So for example, in the United States, we had a couple of days ago an attack for an energy provider. So that was a great hack, because this energy provider is also working with DLT systems and smart contracts. It was a field test for them. So, and if you have seen also the great fire hacks or whatever happens here in the world, is I really think we need to restructure the concepts itself. So, for example, if you're running a node for your DLT system, it must be hosted on a way that we, for example, use our own NAS systems at home, for example, which is provided by your hoster and your router, for example, and we can create a network out of that. so that we more and more given the people of the company and I will say the workers, the employers, or whatever, the necessary to run their company in a safe way by hosting their own nodes, for example, and not rely to third party which are outside from the company because it's more reliable or something like that. So when we talk about Schiff, you know that when we talk about the GBA and we talk about the GBVP, we always address our members to run an own node for the GBVP, because this kind of decentralization will keep us away from a central point who is doing the hosting at all for us. So we keep out the danger by spreading around, right? This is the idea of Bitcoin, for example. Bitcoin is spread around the private persons, and the idea is that the private person is getting an incentive. But the incentive of a company is not to give a token or something away which is mined or something like that. The incentive for the company is that they have a reliable, secure service which is more secure today, even if we talk about the flaws, than they had before. So the incentive should be to support the network by keeping up the business in a trusted way, not for an earning of tokens, for example. So, and that's what I'm said. We have to rethink the concepts we are going to make people a part of a network, even if it is a government network. So the departures of the government have to support the own system, not someone is supporting them, because the benefit of them is not the token we bought for the government. It's the benefit that they have a secure system, which is a secured information channel, a secured channel of interacting and talking each other. And for the end of the day, trusted data which have not been infringed.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. Now, I think let's talk about actors, right? So obviously, when we talk about any IT system or any platform in that sense, right? There are multiple actors. There are good actors. There are bad actors. So I think with respect to cybersecurity, what are those key actors in the ecosystem, and then what are the impacts, right? And how can they play a better role? Who wants to go first, Kevin or Rolf?
Sure, sure, yeah. You mean the actors in a cyber criminal space? I mean, when you look to the history, and I was also in the past not a good guy, I would say, on the hacker side. Um, when I look to the motivation, right? What is the motivation of people who are trying to interact or to break into a system, whatever it is, right? Could be a digital cryptography currency, or could be a normal system from an organization or government back-end information, whatever it is. But the motivation has been changed, right? And today we're talking really about not anymore about an organization like the mafia, where people do that just for money, or they taking the money from the people somehow. I think it's more government driven. So and I have seen so many attacks, even in the espionage of industries or espionage of governments, where governments are trying to hide themselves and trying to be another person or another organization. And at the end of the day, right, with we have EDR and XDR systems, we can trace back, and we can see what kind of campaign and what kind of a major malware technology, because everything is modular, right, in the dark net, and you can populate very easy great malware with existing stuff together, and you will find really easy out. And this was also what we did. We analyzed the digital currency flow from people where we know they are in crime, right, and what they bought and what they sell with their currency. And we saw, even with that flow back, where come the attacks from which kind of organizations or governments came these attacks back. And this was also a great outcome, because so we see more and more governments all over the globe, right? Even governments who are not saying that are doing actively attacking other organizations or other governments, they are doing that because of the simple reason. It's all about the economy, right? People want um, to get leadership in a specific technology, and I have seen some insights from. I mean, I can talk to this because I was allowed to talk on this. I talked with the German NSA, which is the BND, the Bundesnachrichtendienst in Germany, about um, the attacks to the plants in Iran, to the atomic plants, right? So, what was the motivation um, to to break into that ecosystem from the Iran nuclear program to to break down, yeah, those kind of facilities? And everybody thought, yeah, it was all about against Iran because it's a bad country, it's a bad government, and they are not allowed to do some nuclear stuff, right? And that was the reason. No, it was not, because we figured out that George Bush in the 80s gave the program up to specifically hack Siemens plants. Siemens was involved in that part in Iran to break into Siemens nuclear um, environments, um, not with the outcome to show the world, hey, Iran is bad. No, it was just about to say, look how bad Siemens is. Do you want to buy a nuclear plant from Siemens? Really? No, you can break in. And that was the break-even point when the US went into the leadership back to um, to be um, to be the leader in nuclear plants. I'm not kidding you. That's the outcome of the German agencies here. And again, it's all about um, I don't know right now the English word, but it's really the pressure comes from, let's say, the government to support local interests of organization. And this is, I think, the biggest turnaround which I see in the past, where motivations of hackers and others went a little bit away, and they would go more into the government sector.
Right. Rolf, I think that's a very, very interesting piece of history with respect to how these politics and other dynamics work. I would want to now go to Jorg. Jorg, I think you have already have some experience with exposing bad actors, right? And I think you have faced some brunt as well. So, and obviously it takes a lot of courage to handle such things. So, can you please share your experience in terms of what kind of bad actors are there, and then what was your experience and how did it all pan out?
Yeah, we have several groups. We have the bad actors, as we said, and we have the actors of ethical hacks, and we have those guys who makes the work for hacking much easier. These are the guys who are going for getting a bounty to find problems. So, and another thing is the scam. So in this case, the bad actors always going for money, as Rolf was saying, and they have a financial interest in there or want to damage the reputation of someone. So or some company. So if I if I likely go to attack McAfee, it's not about the money from McAfee. It's more to attack the reputation of McAfee as a security software, for example, right? So if I'm going from an ethical hack, my purpose is totally different. In a world where we are in a digital transformation process and people can access data everywhere about a person, and we have systems which is not, I would say, for example, if you want my private key for doing custody, for example, your software has to ask me to send your the private key credentials to work with them, not I have to leave my private keys at your side. So if this is an ethical point, for example, for people who are want to have privacy, yeah, and that is not anonymity, there is a good reason to remember the people that no system is really secure. So I do that to make a show out that, for example, you hack a government server or something like that for the purpose to show them. So what you have done to the people here is not fine. So we will call back. Okay, this is some kind of ethical. So for example, we had a hack which was costing $8 million to keep out $11 million. You see, it's not about the $11 million because a guy who has $8 million to try a hack is not coming from a point as he's sophisticated about that all the stuff, what it is. He comes from an ethical point. And the last group is at the moment the most dangerous thing we will see also growing and continue in this year is that of scam. Scam is something, what will I reach? I will reach two things. I will damage the reputation of the people and I want to get their Bitcoins, for example. So I pretend a system where you can do mining, for example, and you can invest into the mining. And then you are in a trust and the belief that they have a mining farm and you are in a cloud service, for example, for doing mining. So what happens after 2 years, they have more people in the system than the mining earnings can provide. What they will do, they take away the multi-level marketing scam out of that. And then they said, oh, we have some hash power problems. We can't follow up. We have to shut down our system. So the people invested into fake companies, into deep fake profiles of people who are really not existing. And another point, what these always do, these guys, is they call people like, I would say, Andreas Antonopoulos, or they call people like John McAfee and say, did you know that this guy was talking with you and get your picture? So what happens is Twitter today is a good start to talking shitstorms against people. So you can have the brightest company running. You never will be having acting in the crypto Twitter, for example, because we are in a copy and paste of information world. So if you can't hack a system, try to do a shitstorm on this system. That's the common. So Amazon has a shitstorm in the beginning of Amazon. So they were saying this is a fake company or whatever, and Amazon was one of the two companies stayed around that. So how can we avoid that the people going that way because they want to fake, they want to scam, and they want to get trust you to invest into questionable systems, for example. There's only one way. For example, if you have Ethereum or you have Bitcoin or whatever, in this world, we can access Block Explorer. So if someone is saying we transact this block and we have founded thousands of blocks, you can look for the Block Explorer. It's very easy to do. So you just go for Blockstream, type in a transaction ID or something like that, and you can see there is a working blockchain behind. Another thing is about that the way how they talk you is more that it is marketing than acting in a serious way to have a concept about what happens. So the first question is always, if someone is coming with a white paper and has a very good idea for you, it's the first question should be, do you have a sandbox system? Every DLT system which is today working is tested in a sandbox. So even Hyperledger was before in a sandbox, and I can call the guys from them and can ask them, is this real what this guy is telling? Is there something like a blockchain or something like that? The problem in the ICO phase was we had a lot of ideas that people haven't got education. And the next point is education. So if you do education, for example, it is really necessary that you do an educational lesson, and this is the most important thing, educate yourself, that you have a trusted company, for example. If you are on a course and you got the feeling this guy on the course will something selling to you, leave the course. That's exactly what it is. It's on you to get the knowledge today, which can prevent a lot of things, because the most problem in scams is you do not know to ask the right question because you do not have any informations. Yes, so the answers are always there, but if we do not know how to ask the right questions, we will never figuring out if we are on a scam or we are not on a scam. So this is leads into talks which you do not have a lot of time. If you are a victim of something like that, just ignore, because if you get too much attention about that, people distract from the topic you're talking about. Listen to the words, listen to the people. Like, for example, Rolf. I know Rolf only from a friend of mine, okay? So he could be a scammer or whatever, I do not know, okay? But we are on a cybersecurity conference, so I listen very carefully what he has to say. And what he is saying, that proves if he has an idea what he's talking about, that must, and if he has an idea, in my opinion, he must have some knowledge which is proven. Otherwise, the people will say on the conference, hey, what you're talking about there, guy? Go away. This is nothing. You haven't got any idea what you're talking about. So, and this is a difference. If I have knowledge, I show my knowledge and I measure the people on that, what they say and what is the knowledge behind. So everyone is talking to me. I'm looking up, is the knowledge he is presenting to me a real one, or is it something because he comes from a sales team, for example? And this is something we can easily prevent. look what the people doing, where they are acting, and look what the topic is about they're talking. Yeah. If someone is talking and you talking and talking, he's writing about the failure in your cooking, or he says you're a lousy musician. What has a musician to say in a cybersecurity conference, for example, right? So listen to the topics he's talking. Yeah, listen to the inventory of talks. Listen carefully if there is evidence in the talk, and then you can make your opinion. But scammers always distract you from the real topic, and then you invest in something what is not there. Yes, this is a way how you can act always on that.
Right. No, I think that's a very good thought process, and I think this is one of the challenges which blockchain industry as a whole faced, right? And this is where I think organizations like Government Blockchain Association, they play a very crucial role, right? Because the Government Blockchain Association is about knowledge, it's about awareness, and it's about helping public and government sector organizations to understand and adopt blockchain technology to solve the challenges that they have, right? And this is where we as an organization, we as a group of people, we have a lot of responsibility to ensure the messaging that we are sharing with our audience, right, in terms of what kind of scams are there, what kind of cyber security issues are there, and how can common sense prevail, and how can a lot of these challenges and scams can be avoided. And I think with that, Kevin, I want to go to you with a different question, because let's talk about, I think, because we spoke about a lot of scams with respect to, I think, lack of common sense, I think, lack and good and bad actors. But what I want to discuss with you is that if you can share your thoughts with respect to what blockchain brought to the table, right? Because when we started talking about privacy, we started talking about anonymity, right? And I think we felt that these can solve a lot of challenges, but obviously people are still stuck with respect to anonymity versus privacy discussion, right, or debate, as we can call it. So what are your thoughts on that, and whether and how do you ensure that using the right tools and technologies, you can stay away from these kind of cyber issues?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Mr. Lanza actually had a very relevant question in the chat, which I think ties in very nicely to that question, which was, I was asked to talk about cryptocurrency, but something that I often have to, especially with people that don't have much exposure to blockchain or similar technologies, I really have to set the stage that there's two different things at play with blockchain for the standard public. There is cryptocurrency and there is distributed ledger technology. And the two are not necessarily the same. Cryptocurrency just happens to use distributed ledger technology. And most people that I talk to, especially that aren't experts in the field, confuse the two. And so the question that he asked, I think, is very topical to what you're saying, which is, what does blockchain add to cybersecurity? And I think the answer to that really is we have to embrace things like digital ledger technology. What that gives you is verifiable, immutable logs, and I actually kind of think it's a funny thing. I do a lot of forensic work, and for anybody who does that out there, I love it when people go and modify logs or edit accounting systems or change databases, because usually I can then find a gap. And when I find a gap, it's like leaving me little breadcrumbs leading me to what's going on. And in fact, if they don't modify the logs, sometimes people are not sure. Did we get compromised? I don't know. But if you go on a system and all the logs have been wiped, you're probably like, yeah, some bad actors have probably been on here and they've probably wiped their traces or tried to by deleting the logs. So I think, that's probably the biggest thing I'd want to do. I mean, Jorg put it well, we try and focus on what are the ideas that are here. I mean, I think Rolf and I would both lose against him if we judged it by hair, and whatnot. So, we don't want to do that. So I think for me, it'd be a lot of focus on distributed ledger technology and how we can use that in ways that enhance our security. There is an interesting thing about this where we talked about anonymity and, the immutable nature and the verifiable nature of distributed ledgers come from the very fact that they are not private, that they are distributed, that there's multiple copies, that they can be compared, which does make it an interesting case that now you've got that information public. And does that public nature make it more secure? And I would say it does, yes. In fact, Jorg threw down kind of a gauntlet where he said not to use open source, that it's less secure. I would make the exact opposite argument that having it public, having more people able to look at it, having non-proprietary code uh, is paramount to making things more secure. And in the crypto world, if somebody says, "Hey, here's a proprietary crypto that I've developed and I think it's awesome," it's not going to go anywhere. You've got to have the crypto be able to be seen, be attacked, be looked at by academia to find out whether or not there's holes in it, and poke holes in it. And that open source nature of that concept is what allows that to be done. So I'll put away my soapbox, and hopefully that answers your question.
Absolutely, absolutely. Rob, do you want to share your thoughts on privacy versus anonymity and how and what Kevin just mentioned?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I agree on that, what Kevin said. Having exactly the same view here. Again, the discussion today, I think, I mean, it's a wide range, right? We're talking about cryptography, we're talking about blockchain per se, which can be used in other areas and technologies and things like that. The thing is, at the end of the day, right? What is, how should I say that? In a cryptographic or let's say in a crypto currency situation, right? The goal and the usage of a blockchain is a complete other way that when you're using that in a private economy, in a closed group situation. I have seen, for example, many use cases in a closed environment where the outcome or the usage is not per se a blockchain concept. For example, I was involved in a nice concept with DHL and Porsche, the car manufacturer, and DHL, the packet company. They created a use case to deliver packets in Germany into Porsche cars over a blockchain concept. And this was really funny because there was a company in Berlin who created that use case with Porsche and DHL together. And the biggest security concerns here was how to implement that in a way where you can have a hybrid blockchain. Hybrid means the car could be offline, no internet access. It is not connected to an ecosystem, but the parcel guy who arrived with his DHL car wants to open the trunk to put the packet in, right? And and the plan is to get a kind of offline blockchain partitional stuff in a car, where even in an offline mode where you're not able to evaluate the correct key, or is he allowed or he gets access on it in a real-time situation possible, because you cannot evaluate that somebody in the last minute said no, you cannot open the trunk, right? So what I want to tell you is, right, so the thing in the security area in discussion of blockchain could be really a wide topic. And okay, it's for me now the first discussion in your stage, but I think also in the government perspective, the topics are really wide, right? Because it could be not only the currencies, it could be also, for example, testaments. So what's happened when somebody is dying and the testament will be opened. It could be also a government task to provide this kind of things around. And again, in my case, and this is what I want to tell you, right, is in every single use case or different use cases where you can use a blockchain, even the security requirements and aspects could be really different, right? It depends what you want to achieve. And I want to come back what Jörg said in the beginning, right? The weakest point I think is in fact, or was it Kevin? I'm not sure. One of you go, but of you guys mentioned that the weakest point is really, of course, the wallet, the private key, the access to the private key. And if this part is mostly protected um, with an offline wallet with another methodology, um, then you can drive a blockchain concept. I think in every single in every single use case, right? I mean, it's a wide answer to
Right.
a to a global question, but yeah,
No, I think
no,
this is a wide topic anyways, right?
yeah,
Cybersecurity is
absolutely,
like basically it impacts every industry. So I think there's no straight answer and there's no simple answer to this.
absolutely,
Log, actually, I want to come to you, but I want to ask you a different question. I want you to basically, I think, talk about identity, right? Because we cannot talk about cybersecurity without talking about identity. And I feel that the human being is one of the weakest link in the cybersecurity ecosystem, right? And this is where identity plays a crucial role. And it's not just about the identity of the human being, it's identity of the organization, it's also about the identity of the smart devices, objects, and so many other things, right? And obviously there's this concept of self-sovereign identity, which is talking about empowering users with the data ownership, privacy, and consent. So what are your thoughts on that, and do you think blockchain is providing a
yeah,
good
yeah, yeah,
solution to this problem
absolutely. So the thing is, what you're doing in the real world to prove your identity. In a normal situation like here in Europe, you go to a notar, right? You go to a third person who is proving that you are Rolf Haas or I'm Rolf Haas and I'm doing that or that, or I'm allowed to do this or that. For example, I did something for my mother. She's not in a good health at the moment, right? So I went to the notar and I got some government approval that I can interact in her name, right? So some this was a specific use case. So when you put that in a digital world, right, in regards of prove your smartphone, prove um, your role on that use case, whatever you are doing. Um, the thing is, of course, right? Can you always involve a third party institution who proves your identity? So if you do that, per se, I would not a guy who preferred the situation because at the end of the day, the notar or even some government institution are maybe able to see what roles you have and um, what kind of interactions you can do. So um, the real world today is, I think, a good combination. So if you are doing, let's say, if you get, I mean, it's all about shared responsibility model, like in the cloud, right? So if you are like to prove your identity, maybe it's a good way to get a global certificate somehow in a system. And this certificate will sign other proofs, like a web server root certificate, which you can also inherit and sign um, to yeah, to make sure that your website is your website, right? And similar to this, in combination with a two-factor authentication or with um, even a triple authentication methodology during the signing process, could be a way to prove your identity, to make sure that you don't have scammers, that you can make sure that in that ecosystem where you are acting as a node member in the blockchain context, you are trusted, right? You are a member which is well known. Um, it all depends about how anonymized or hidden you could be in an ecosystem of a blockchain. But when we think about digital currencies, and everybody, specifically my friends and my counterparts who I'm talking about digital currencies, they have a lot of concerns in Europe that you could have similar ratings like in China, right? Where based on your health status, based if you are getting your COVID vaccine in your blood or not, you get access or not because of your reputation um, in that area. And China is living exactly that kind of things in regards of getting access to specific products, or how good is your social brand um, in other digital in the other digital world. And I think that's the biggest concern, because in an in an in a world today where you have cash money, um, I mean, nobody will trace and track every single serial number of every $100 note you have, right? Because I mean, technically it would, but it's completely anonymized. And if you do that in a digital currency situation, in my belief, it could be. Um, I mean, it's for everybody. For us, a nice thing, easy to use, everything is good. But for the governments, they can really trace, maybe, if if there is no blockchain mechanism behind the schemes. What I mentioned in my pitch in the beginning, where you get where you can also see who has access to my records, for example, and this is valid in a blockchain. If this is not possible, then people from the government could go into a dark room and say, okay, I want to see all the money transfers from Rolf Haas or Jörg Molt or whatever, and I want to have the big picture what he's doing, right? And nobody have the possibility, neither me, neither myself, no another person, that I can make sure that that nobody have done this background check with my currency flow. So the the short story is, if we are using authentication somehow in a blockchain model, it must be also be guaranteed that every node has a possibility to double check afterwards who have seen my my records as well, for example, to make
Right.
to
So basically,
make.
it's about traceability, right? In the sense, like, and this is the big question, right? It's about privacy, it's about transparency, it's about traceability, and I
Yeah,
think this is one of the points. And I want to basically now go to York. Actually, York, do you want to share your thoughts on? I think the
Yes.
question that I originally asked, right, with respect to identity access and identity management, right? And how does blockchain play a role? What is with respect to decentralized identity, self-sovereign identity, and then what a role different participants have in that particular. And then I think obviously what Rolf just shared, if you can comment on that as well, that would be great. And then we'll go to Kevin to answer that after your.
Yes.
yeah,
So blockchain technology, especially DLT technology, is open up a wide area and range of having identity rules in there. And one of the attractive models at the moment, which is Microsoft, for example, working on the Bitcoin blockchain, and we have several groups working on DLT systems to do, is so-called zero knowledge. The zero knowledge technology open up a completely new point of how we identify. So, for example, you get an Earth ID or something like that, and you show up to a doctor in person, and he is making an entrance that you have shown up yesterday, for example. He knows you, he knows who you are. So he is creating an entrance. Yes, this person has been on my side and it's a real person. So he has only to acknowledge that you are the real person. So what happens? You got a credential and you get something about that in your healthcare wallet, I will say. So the next time you show up at the bank, you show up and the guy on the bank knows exactly who he is. Now you build a chain of confirmations of your identity. And this chain of confirmation of your identity in a real person is stored somewhere where we can access that. So the next time someone will say, this is your identity, he can make a face scan or something like that. and can see and whether check the blockchain if I'm the person in front of him or not. That means I do not have to provide my credentials to the person who only want to know if I'm the person and I'm right, have the right to access something, because today everyone knows after that where I'm living, where I'm from, what's my street name, which is my house number or whatever, or your social security number or whatever we show out as an identity. With zero knowledge, it's only I'm saying I'm Jörg Mold, and the guy is providing me the system. I type in, for example, a question I only know about me because I have been shown up to the doctor 2 days ago. This type of information, what I type in as an answer, is going to the doctor sites on the blockchain system and aggregate a valid entrance about what I am saying. So the output is from the blockchain, and it says, okay, it must have, it is truly the person you're talking to. And I have to show no more information about it. So Rolf was saying, who has access to that? When, for example, I have a wallet about my data, and the access of the wallet with my data is on my hands. I can go for a doctor and can say, for example, okay, with my identity check, you know I'm at that, and I will show you my healthcare wallet for 1 hour. You can access this data because you have to know what it is in and what is the history of my healthcare records, for example. But it is necessary, and this is also how we can solve the problem with the credentials from email, for example, because now the password and everything is stored on the server, and like we had the problem with third parties, if someone is trusting in Ledger has been hacked and all the credentials was away. Yeah, so if we trust in third-party technology for storing our keys, we have the same problems with the identification. So if I store my keys somewhere and I have the access to, and someone wants to have the access because he wants to do a custody service and want to know who I am and why I'm transacting the money to follow the chain, first, he has to check whether I'm willing to give him an access to the keys for improvement for maybe 10 minutes or something like that. And then this key's locked, so he can't access them anymore and it's in my hand. Or whether I'm suspicious of a criminal act. I do not go for that and do not agree. I caused myself in trouble. So this is totally the point of view how we can turn the proof of systems upside down, because it's in my reasonable to show my credentials. So for example, you do a deal and I provide you with zero knowledge and something is going wrong. I'm not paying, or I block my wallet from paying automatically or whatever. Yeah. So you must know who I am and how to address me. So we can also do this zero knowledge, that it is saying, okay, the blockchain is giving you 2 chances to clear the case. Otherwise, the credentials will be sent to the counterparty, which has now the right to access your data, to access you in person because you are not following rules. So, but we have a little bit more of privacy in that. That's exactly what Rolf was saying. If everyone knows and the government knows what I do, and with people, we are not in a government which is a democracy one. We are more in a government which is not very, very fair to us. This could be a big problem. But with zero knowledge, we can turn the pages over. And there are a lot of companies that actually working on that problem to solve. So, and in my opinion, I want to know what Kevin is thinking about it.
You know, there's so many issues to unwind there. Ask me a more pointed question, because I don't know which point you want me to talk about. So
okay,
what?
When we come to the point of zero knowledge, and we come to the point that the guy who is trusting you has a right to know your identity if something is going wrong. So do you think that DLT systems and smart contract can solve this bridge between, I will say, the oracle that is a real person and the credentials he has collected to prove that he is a real person, or do you think there's still a gap?
I think there's a massive gap. I mean, you know, some of the chats have been talking about how the various biometrics can easily be, killed by deep fakes. I think the concept of how easily certain things can be forged, how simple certain concepts can be copied, face locks, biometrics. Yeah, for example, right now, are you in Germany right now, or are you at the skyline of, what is that, Taiwan in the background of your video there? I mean, it's getting to the point where you can't tell if Rolf is on the beach, or, is that actually a static picture behind me? So it's just going to get worse. I was asked years ago what would be the number one thing, for example, that Google could solve for us. and it would be some sort of proof of digital identity. Right now, we don't have that, and it's getting pretty bad by the day. So, yeah, I got nothing, and I don't think technology is necessarily. It's always going to be a cat and mouse game. I mean, we go back, you know, through the history of time on forgery of paperworks and seals and currency and holograms and adding things that are difficult to forge to it, and we're just going to have to keep having that cat and mouse game constantly.
And I can add maybe one comment to what Jörg said with the picture of a person to make this identification. I'm not sure if you heard what Sweden here in Europe is planning with the kind of vaccine improvement. So if you have the vaccine or not, and they want not to have a tracking system in Sweden where you can aim the address or the name of a person. So the plan for the Sweden paper is to get a picture, just a picture. I mean, we know Facebook and we know the power of pictures, but they want to use just a picture, and with that picture you get a sign or not a sign. Let's say you get the paper that you have the vaccine and you are good, and you can show up that card, right? So, but nobody will can do a check about your address and your name. It's just about that you have your card with you, and you can prove if you want to have that vaccine or not. And this is a different story, I would say, because all other official government papers, like a passport or whatever, have the full trace of your birthday, of your address, of your name. And the Swedish approach, I think, I'm not sure if this will be happen in the whole Europe, but the Swedish approach will try to eliminate that the people privacy will be too open, right? So I'm not sure if this is the right discussion for this topic here, but as we know, right, uh, how how are the next steps even in this whole COVID situation for the future, and can people in the future have a social tracing whatever ranking um, or not, to get access to something or not because they got the vaccine or not. And this is I think a use case in the future would be also, in my opinion, because we will see all the corona mutations in the next 10 years minimum, going less down. We have already 4 corona virus types, which are not even a big deal. But I think that's also a government use case. And this is my personally opinion. The governments are losing the control over, let's say, the money, because everything is digital, right? And it's out of control. Now the government is looking for another situation, maybe the health situation of their citizens, to make that as a main task. And if this is in a not perfect way traceable, that could be go into a really wrong direction, I would say.
So I think I totally agree with you. I think in that sense, any and every technology is a double-edged sword, right? And I think in hand of bad actors, I think it can do more damage than good. And I think this is where the discussion always boils down to common sense, to good versus bad actors. And obviously technology is always an enabler, but then the question is how do you basically leverage the benefits of the technology while avoiding the pitfalls, right? So with that, I think what I would want to do is like because we have just 10 minutes left. I would want each one of you to just share your parting thoughts, maybe take 1 or 2 minutes. We can keep it short with respect to what are your thoughts with respect to the future of cybersecurity? A parting note. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I will start. So at my lead statement, I would say cybersecurity, and you have seen it from Rolf and you have seen from Kevin, is a long road to succeed. Yeah, there are a lot of questions open, but in my opinion, what I said in the entrance is, if we do not change first the systems, which has so much flaws in there. For example, if we do not change the smart contracts to a different language or a different setup on the DLT system, we will not be fine with that, because just copy and paste and do the same errors in the ESC20 protocol as we have done before is not the solution. So if we do not change the way how we build IT structures today, we will have the flaws in the next 10,000 years. Yeah, because a good thing is, for example, if I want to shut down an internet site, I go for a telnet protocol and address this internet site. We never close the systematic between setting up an HTTP protocol, which is not connected to a base on a computer, which is based on DOS or a telnet client or whatever. So we really have to refeaturing and rescaling the whole idea of acting informations or something from the ground. The next thing is blockchain and DLT systems are a big step to provide more evidence and more security in there. But there are also flaws in there which we can fix, because we are now in the creation process. Think about the statement, what Kevin was saying about the digital ID concerns. That's the same why we haven't got elections on the blockchain, for example. Yeah. But I'm still very optimistic that we can solve these problems with the right environment and with the right conceptual work in that. Because at the moment, in my opinion, the most flaws are the conceptual works, and that's why we do always the same mistakes. So, and last but not least, when we're talking about digital transformation, and coming back to Rolf, who was saying, "Oh, see all the issues with COVID-19 and see all the problems which caused that into a digital transformation." On the one hand, we need for cybersecurity more trust into the systems from the people who will use that, and from the common sense and mistrust against governments or whatever. On the other side, we need a stronger point on customer protection against the governments if something is going wrong. That's the way. If everyone wants to know what I'm doing, I have the right to know what the people are doing who are tracking me. Yeah, and this is both in both ways a related fact to cybersecurity, because the information's transferred into into a system from the government, or in the hands of my own, or in the hands of a hacker in the worst case, is always because they come together at one central point. We haven't really decentralized our knowledge. We haven't got really decentralized, for example, a consensus system where users decide whether some judging is over a policy or not. So these are all concepts we have to talk about and we have to solve. But as the moment it is, I think it's a great step for us to come on beyond an ethic and security, if we are willing to discuss this on, and if we are going to make more and more concepts about with those people who are very firm in this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Rolf. Do you want to go next?
Yes, sure. Two topics. One thing is the ethical stuff, and the other one is the technical stuff. And when I concentrate now to my technical statement, I would say we have two. I see basically two trends which we see in the future. The first thing is everybody's moving into the cloud. Shared responsibility model in the cloud is a key factor, and who takes access. So if a company like Amazon or Azure, Microsoft is taking the lead of the infrastructure and the platform in the cloud, then we need to ask those big facility providers about the security, because we cannot trust just the application level above. We also need to trust even the hardware below, right? So this is another point. And the other extreme is IoT devices. We have more and more IoT devices in the houses. Looking back 5 years, everybody has maybe just a webcam in the front door, and now everybody has tons of IoT devices at my home in the home. I have a separate virtual network just for my IoT devices. because I'm a little bit paranoia, I know that those fixed, I mean, that IoT devices are not fixable. They are not patchable, nothing. And what is the trend? The trend is to isolate and to freeze those systems into a specific state. And McAfee did that with Intel together. I mean, I know that what we did in many projects to protect cars. For example, in a BMW, in every BMW, you have a system installed where you are not able to manipulate your operating system or even to add some additional software on it, because the system, which is an old-fashioned hackable Linux device, is completely frozen. It's hardened in that way that nobody can manipulate the system. And I think this could be also a trend in a community where IoT devices will be sold and will be trashed away in a year or two, or maybe in 3 years, and nobody takes care about updates on this. So two things, right? The cloud, shared responsibility. We need to go into that area more granular and re-ask even other stakeholders in that situation about security, and the IoT as another extreme to get security into fixed devices which you cannot adapt with patches and so on.
Thank you, Rolf. Kevin, any final thoughts from your end?
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll take a left turn here. And, with cybersecurity, the big thing that you have to do is you have to balance confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And those things do not have equal weight in all systems. So for example, a public website for a company isn't confidential. You want it to have high integrity, you don't want it to be defaced, and you want it probably to be online, but availability might not be that important. Whereas, for example, like a website like Amazon, I imagine if they go down for a few hours, they lose gazillions of dollars, and so availability is very important to them. Confidentiality is they might lose customers. So paying attention to that CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability is probably the biggest thing that needs to be addressed when dealing with anything involving blockchain. And other than that, the topic I'll leave you with is the fifth domain. So, in typical warfare, you have three domains. You have land, sea, and air. The fourth domain is space, and the fifth domain is information. So there are battles gearing up if they're not already occurring in that. And so I'll leave you with one thought on cybersecurity, which is data is the new oil. How are we going to protect it? So.
Thank you, Kevin. And I think it's been a very, very interesting conversation. Usually what happens, I when I'm sitting alone, I think I know a lot of things. But then when I come to these kind of discussions, I understand that there's a lot to learn. And I think this has been a very, very interesting learning experience. We have Jovan with us. Jovan, do you want to talk about GBA for a couple of minutes? Please introduce yourself.
Yes. I will give you say a few words about the Government Blockchain Association. I'm like Shiv, one of the both volunteers, Shiv and Jörg, one of the volunteers and regional leads in the Government Blockchain Association. I'm responsible for member and chapter operations. And a few words about us. We started in early days as a Washington, D.C. area blockchain meetup, and we grew up now quite quickly. I would say what differentiates us is that we have now a global organization, probably the best connectivity between Washington, Europe, and the international locations. We have a regional, the vibrant regional organization in Asia Pacific, in U.S., certain U.S. states, and the Middle East, Europe. But what's interesting, what we do, which is different from other blockchain organizations, we are focused on developing working groups and communities of interest, or technical activities which are moderated and properly governed, and also local geographic activities where we bring the people from the public sector together with people from the private sector and the technology. We're trying to be also we positioned ourselves pretty fortunately in the beginning to be at the intersection of money, governance, and the law. So not to avoid the fact that cryptocurrency is super important. And while there are still some people who believe that big bad government is going to take cryptocurrency offline, it's obviously a nonsense. And everybody who is in governance today needs to understand what's happening with crypto. Everybody who is in crypto needs to understand what's in the government, and definitely everybody who is a lawyer in this space or tax accountant needs to know both sides. So if you're interested in learning more about being a member at GBA, understand being a member means you are a part of GBA and you make GBA. You can join as a professional, you can join or you can join as an organization. Organization gets tangible benefits, and I can talk to you about it. Just reach out to me. I'm going to drop my contact info. All right.
Thank you, Johan. With that note, I think I just want to add that we do regular events on different topics across different verticals. Please do visit our events page and then please participate in these engaging conversations. And thank you very much for joining.
Don't disconnect me before I drop my contact info, please.
Okay, sure. No, I will leave it open for a second. But yeah, thank you very much. And it was great having you all on this call.